Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be discussing Cinque Terre. This national park and UNESCO World Heritage Site in Italy has been on my bucket list for so long, and I finally visited last April. Nestled along the Ligurian Sea, these 5 historic fishing villages are known for their charm, views, and colorful buildings. Personally, I think Cinque Terre lived up to the hype and I want to go back. If you are planning a trip to Cinque Terre, this video will cover everything you know to have a fantastic trip in one of the most iconic areas of Italy. I will be talking about transportation, things to do, photography tips, accessibility, and so many other things to know. I won't be talking about prices just because it varies depending on if you visit in high season or low season, if you're on a budget or not. I also won't be talking about what to pack or what to wear because that's just personal preference, and again, it depends on the time of the year, the weather. I will say though that you should wear good walking shoes because you're going to do a lot of walking and climbing stairs when you're in Cinque Terre. I also won't be talking about where to stay or where to eat, but I do suggest getting some seafood while you are on the coast. I also want to say real quick that I'm probably going to mispronounce some of the names. I've listened to how to say them all, but I'm not very good at pronouncing things if you've watched any of my other videos, so I am sorry for any mistakes in advance, and if you're an Italian watching this, I apologize. First, I'm gonna do a breakdown of all of the 5 towns just so you know what to expect and which one is which. I'm gonna be starting at the northernmost village and then working my way down to the coast to the southernmost village. So at the very top, we have Monterosa al Mare, which is the largest of the Cinque Terre villages. It is best known for its beaches. Surprisingly, Cinque Terre, even though it's on the coast, doesn't really have a lot of beaches, but Monterosa has a ton of really big sandy beaches, so if you want to spend time on the water, on the beach, this is where to go. Some of the other villages have smaller pebble beaches, but they're nothing compared to Monterosa, so definitely go to Monterosa if you want to rent an umbrella and get that like Italian coastal beach vibe. Monterosa is also the flattest of the villages. This area has a lot of cliffs, but Monterosa is fairly flat, especially compared to the other villages. So if you have accessibility issues, a wheelchair, a stroller, anything like that, you're gonna wanna maybe base yourself in Monterosa. It's gonna be way easier to get around because the other villages, and I will talk about this later in more depth, they aren't as accessible just because of all of these stairs and the cliffs. After Monterosa, the next village down is Vernazza, and this is usually claimed as the prettiest of the villages, although honestly they're all gorgeous, but that usually is on the top of the prettiest villages in Italy list, and I can definitely see why. It is gorgeous. It has the biggest and best harbor, so if you want to go see some boats and just kind of sit back and watch the ocean, this is a good place to go. It has a great vibe. There's a ton of outdoor seating at restaurants, so you can just enjoy the beautiful breeze coming off the ocean while you enjoy some seafood. Then the next village is Corniglia. This is the only one that I didn't visit on my trip. It is the smallest of the villages, and it is also the only one that is not directly on the water. Instead, it is located up on the cliffside. It's the least accessible. From the train station, you have to walk over 300 steps to get up into the town proper. So keep that in mind as you plan your trip. Like I said, I skipped it just because I didn't want to walk those steps, and it is the smallest and least popular, although if you want to go to every village, make sure to add it onto your list. The next village is Manarola, and if I had to pick one favorite, I would probably pick Manarola. The views are astounding, there's beautiful gardens, and I just loved it there. The southernmost village is Riomaggiore, and it is also a really beautiful village. It is the second largest and has some of the best nightlife if you're interested in going to bars. There's a small pebble beach that's kind of hidden in a little cove that's really nice if you want to check out one of the smaller beaches in Cinque Terre. Cinque Terre is bookended by Laventio to the north and La Spezia to the south. If you are on a budget, you can stay in one of these 2 cities instead of within Cinque Terre. That's what I did. I stayed in La Spezia, and my hotel was significantly cheaper than if I had stayed within the actual national park. And where I stayed was really close to the train station, and it was less than 10 minutes to the closest village. So that is definitely an option if you're on a budget. Next, I'm going to talk about the public public transportation in Cinque Terre. This is vital for your trip, so pay attention. The train is the main way to travel between the villages. There is also a ferry that goes to some of the villages, and each town has its own bus system, but overall you're probably going to be using your own 2 feet while you're in the villages, and then the train to get between them. I suggest buying the Cinque Terre card, which will allow you unlimited access to the train. Otherwise, it's about €5 per trip, which can really add up if you plan on traveling a lot throughout the villages. The price for the card varies a lot depending on if you're there in high season, low season, or mid season, or if you're there on the weekend. It also will vary depending on how many days you are in Cinque Terre. There's an adult card and a child card. The Cinque Terre train card is good for any stop from Levanto down through La Spezia, and it can be purchased at any of those train stations or online. If you get the train version of the card, you also have unlimited access to the hiking trails, and I'll talk about the hiking trail a little bit later, but some portions of it are paid, although most of it is free. To look at the train schedule, use Google Maps. You can put in the train station you're starting at and whatever village you want to go to, and it'll show you the list of times that the train runs. If you're going to be out late at night, make sure you pay attention to when the last train of the night is, because you obviously don't want to miss it and get stranded. The train is very similar to any other that you'll find in Italy. The seats are comfortable, there's a restroom on board, there's outlets if you need to charge things. Keep in mind that there's not really a view, so don't fret if you can't get a window seat, because you're mostly gonna just see brief glimpses of the ocean and the inside of tunnels. So like I said, don't worry about having to find a window seat. The train is really fast and you can travel between each village within a matter of minutes. Okay, now let's get into the things to do in Cinque Terre. Honestly, these villages aren't full of like huge attractions like you'll find in major cities. There aren't, giant cathedral complexes or museums on every corner. One of the top things to do here is to just wander around, chill, soak in the vibe, take pictures, maybe sip a cocktail at a restaurant overlooking the views, and just kind of relax. If you want to get a little bit of a workout in though, there is a hiking trail that connects every single village and you can hike along that. Keep in mind that sometimes part of it is closed because of landslides, so just make sure you look that up in time, what trails you can take. Like I said earlier though, part of the trail is paid, and that includes the sections from Monterosso down to Corniglia. You have to have that hiking, trekking pass. I was talking about the Cinque Terre card earlier. There's a train version and then there's just the hiking version. So if you don't plan on taking the train a lot, or maybe you just want to hike the entire thing and you aren't going to use the train, you can do just the hiking one, and it's obviously much cheaper to do it that way. But if you're going to be doing the train, definitely look into buying the train version. Because you're near the gorgeous ocean, obviously taking boat tours is a top thing to do in Cinque Terre. I skipped it because I was on a budget, but if you want to take a boat tour, there are a ton of different options to look for, and I will link a couple of Get Your Guide options in the description, and there are affiliate links if you want to book through that. I also saw some people kayaking, and I think that would be a really fun way to explore all the coastline and the cute little coves and rock formations along this area. As I mentioned earlier, chilling at the beach is also one of the best things to do in Cinque Terre. Monterosso is the main place to go if you want to do that, because there are big sandy beaches, umbrellas you can rent, seats, and easy access to gelato. So find a nice place to sit back and relax, maybe go swim in the water, although it can be chilly for a good portion of the year. In summer, it is a great way to cool down and relax. If you're interested in visiting vineyards or doing a wine tasting, Cinque Terre is also a great place for that as well, because there are a bunch of vineyards along the coast here. Personally, photography is a huge passion of mine, so I'm going to go ahead and give you some photography tips and locations to take photos. First of all, Cinque Terre is on the west coast, so the sun rises over the hills behind the village and then sets over the ocean. This means that late golden hour and sunset is the best time to take photos. Morning light can be kind of iffy depending on the time of the year, just because it rises over the hills. So by the time the sun gets over the hills, it's kind of later in the morning, so it's not, the best light overall. But the crowds are fewer in the morning. I suggest going out in the morning at least once during your trip, just to kind of gauge what the light is like and what the crowds are like. But personally, I think that Afternoon and golden hour sunset time is the best light, even though there are more crowds out. There are a ton of amazing places to take photos in Cinque Terre. Like I have said multiple times in this video, the views are incredible, and pretty much every village has one really good place for sunset views. I'll probably just pop up some of the photos on the screen and give you the coordinates so you can find it on Google Maps, because that will probably be the easiest way to share the locations, because not all of them are marked specifically on Google Maps. All right, now I'm gonna do kind of like a rapid fire quick tips section to just answer some basic questions and provide some more things to know. First of all, there are public restrooms throughout Cinque Terre. You can find them at the train station, or a lot of the towns have like one big paid public restroom that you can go to. Expect to pay €1 to go to the restroom, but the ones at the train station, if you have the train card, you can use those for free, which I did not know. And I only found out when I was doing research for this video, and I wish I had known that because there were a couple times that I used paid restrooms while I was in Cinque Terre. Make sure you have change because they don't always take card. If you're looking for places to fill up your reusable water bottle, you will find little fountains throughout the towns as well. And I definitely suggest bringing water. You're going to be doing a lot of walking. If you're there in the warmer seasons, it's going to be hot. So just make sure you have that water, and then that way you don't have to pay for plastic water bottles that you're just going to throw away. You might be wondering if Cinque Terre is accessible. Overall, the answer is no, unfortunately. These are old historic villages. I saw one elevator in the villages, and I didn't really see any ramps, although there are some sections that are wheelchair friendly. Overall, Monte Rosso, like I said earlier, is the flattest and most accessible. So if you do have a wheelchair or problems walking around or climbing stairs, that is a good place to base yourself and maybe start there with your exploration of Cinque Terre. The other villages do have a good amount of stairs and steep areas. You might also have trouble finding wheelchair accessible restrooms and restaurants, but there are some available. The ferry and the train is also not wheelchair accessible as far as boarding goes. There are elevators at most of the train stations. Another huge Cinque Terre tip is to book in advance. This goes for your hotels, but also for any restaurants you want to eat at, especially the more popular restaurants with a view. You're going to want to make reservations in advance. Hotels in Cinque Terre sell out really quickly, so as soon as you know the dates of your trip, go ahead and book your accommodations. Cinque Terre is also not a car-friendly destination. If you're visiting here as part of an Italy road trip, I suggest finding a place to park your car and leaving it there while you explore Cinque Terre by train or by foot. Another important thing to keep in mind is to respect the locals when you visit Cinque Terre. Yes, there are a ton of tourists and crowds here, but at the end of the day, this is where people live and this is their home. So don't litter, don't trespass. Make sure you just pay attention to where you are walking and what you are doing. Also, I really would like to say that this goes without saying, but unfortunately, while I was in Cinque Terre, I saw on a lot of cactus and other plants that people had like carved their initials into the plants, and that bugs me so much. Please also be respectful of the plant life and the gardens here in Cinque Terre and the wildlife as well. You might also be wondering how many days you should stay in Cinque Terre, how many days you should fit into your itinerary for this iconic location. I would say at the minimum 2 days. But if you have more time, I would say 3 or 4, especially if you're a photographer and plan on taking a lot of photos. Again, sunset is the best time to take photos, so you want to have as many sunsets during your trip as possible. I was only there for 2 days and I don't think it was enough. I definitely want to go back. But if you're doing just a quick trip and just want to spend a few hours in each village, or half a day in one, half a day in another, then 1 to 2 days at the minimum you can do. But like I said, you really want to work in at least maybe 3 or 4, or maybe even longer if you plan on doing some day trips. Finally, I just want to say that you should keep your expectations in check for Cinque Terre. As I've mentioned a lot in this video, it is a huge and popular tourist destination. There are going to be crowds. It is going to be expensive. But at the end of the day, it is beautiful and you will have an amazing time. Just keep in mind that there are going to be crowds. People are going to be in your photos. It's going to be hard to get to the viewpoint, etc. but it is gorgeous. You can work around the crowds by getting out early. There were some days where I took the train in at like 8 o'clock in the morning and there was no one around. So just keep that in mind, pay attention to that. If you're on a tight budget, stay in one of the outlier cities, pick up food from the grocery store. There are ways to save money. I'm always on a budget and I was able to not go overboard while staying in Cinque Terre. And that is it for my Cinque Terre guide. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will try my best to answer them. I know I didn't cover everything because there is so much to talk about. Cinque Terre is gorgeous and beautiful and you should definitely add it to your Italy bucket list. Thank you for watching. You can check out my other Italy tip videos and my other vlogs from around the world. Willow, you want to be in the video? Good girl. Okay, well, my cat's here now. What am I saying? My battery's about to die.